We are live with the first episode of the 2016 season of the Oil Hour. As always, it's me, Justin Clyburn, the Oil Commissioner, Arrogant Americans Manager, Leo, the Norman Nobodies Manager, who's been part of the league now. This is his 11th year. How you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We are about 30 minutes late getting started, but so to the season, I'd like to start out by talking a little bit about how amazing our draft weekend was. For those that don't know, we had a 6,000 square foot cabin we rented out on a private lake. Man, it was ridiculous how much fun we had. I'm surprised nobody got killed. I think the sheer remoteness of the place prevented anybody from getting arrested. It was by far the best draft we ever had, the best weekend we could have had together. What was your favorite parts of the weekend, Leo?
The food, as always, was good. With Peacock bringing out that awesome smoker, and so the food was great. The camaraderie was awesome. Probably the best day for me was just actual draft day, because more people that weren't there came in for that day specifically. So draft day, the actual draft day was the best day for myself, and I never thought I would see so much beer be consumed.
It was ridiculous. A lot of beer 10 years ago when we were all together, but I didn't think that we'd continue to drink those amounts 10 years later.
No,
I paid for it all week though. I was hurting. Let's see, we shot 35 pounds of tannerite. Somebody got caught on fire.
Yeah.
Somebody flipped an ATV. Shot flaming clay pigeons over the lake at night. Try to wake people up by firing AR-15s next to their head.
Broke the hot tub. Broke the hot tub.
Huh? Did you break it?
I don't know what I did, but whenever I got in, it just stopped working, and we couldn't get it to work again.
Well, I'm glad y'all drained it pretty good. Yeah, it was just an amazing weekend, and it was so good. We've got it reserved for next year. So next Labor Day weekend, we'll do it all again, and hopefully we'll have even more guys with us. Do you think we're there at its peak?
So let's see. I know out of the NFC, we had 2, 4, 6. We had 6 out of the NFC alone. And then, no, wait. We had, 6 out of the NFC.
We had 7 out of the AFC.
What's that?
7 out of the AFC?
Yeah, 7 out of the AFC. And then the PFC had 5 or 6 once they showed up. Or maybe
I think it was 3. So on that draft day, we had 16 people.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, could have been better, but a great group of guys.
It feels like there was a lot more than that.
There was a lot going on. It was a great weekend. And yeah, as far as draft day goes, it couldn't be beat. Rather than having all 3 leagues draft at once, we had staggered. So the PFC went him, and then we had the AFC at 2 and the NFC at 6. The drafts probably took 2.5 to 3 hours, and then the rest of the time was spent uploading that stuff into Yahoo. because we did do an offline draft using Clicky Draft. But that created like 12 hours of fantasy football drafting. I know that for me, it was helpful to be able to see how those first two drafts went before, it got to ours, and we got to kind of see what would happen if you went this way or that way. Have you got a chance to listen to the audio from the draft day?
So at first I listened to the audio from that night with Brosh doing his drunk I love you mans. So I guess I was, of course, I'll admit it, I was an old man all weekend and went to bed super
Oh, yeah,
early.
you were asleep.
So, yeah.
So how that is, we're all, okay, I went to bed too. I drank all day. I took my medication, including sleep meds because I'm old. Went to bed. I woke up at about 11:30 with Brosh and Finch. They jumped in the bed and had me in like a armhole or something, while somebody else was slapping my ass. I mean, just like real homoerotic army shit. They were yelling, we see each other once a year. You can't go to bed yet. So we ended up around that fire. I'm watching a lot of Dr. Phil lately. I think we need to go around the fire and tell each other what we like about each other. And we all laughed, and he's like, I'm fucking serious, man. We would never see each other. We need to tell each other what we like about each other. So that's how that started.
Jessen was being a little bitch about it.
Yeah, he's the biggest shit talker there is. And then when it came time to say what you didn't like about people, he couldn't really step up. But yeah, I didn't know that Brosh was recording. But yeah, there's some funny videos. The actual draft day audio, 7 minutes and something in. It's my pick, and I was looking at the wrong list in my notebook, and I said DeAndre Hopkins, and then immediately I was like, no, AJ Green.
Yeah.
And you can hear like uproar,
yeah.
No, and you said DeAndre Hopkins. That's who you're getting. I think are not appreciating their commissioner. Them, and they couldn't cut me some fucking slack. Like he wasn't even picked. It wasn't even picked in Clicky Draft yet. It was just like this one. No, this one, and people like lost their shit. So if I would have gotten AJ Green, I would have had that amazing 30-point week this week. That didn't happen. During that draft day, the subject came up of relegation.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say it's the first time I'd ever thought about it. For those that aren't familiar, relegation league, which is common in Europe with soccer. You've basically got different levels of leagues, and the team or the franchise, if you do well enough in this league, you get promoted to the next league. And if you do poorly in one league, you do poorly enough, you'll get relegated down to a lower league. And everybody's always trying to get up to that more prestigious league. About that when we first expanded the oil, I thought that I didn't want to tell this new conference that they were less than, and I didn't want to break up long-standing rivalries. To our 10th season when we started the AFC, and aside from the bit of interact and possibly move into this other conference, I just thought we'd really be losing a lot of long-standing rivalries and stories and things like that. So I never brought up the relegation idea. I thought nobody would like it. And then this past weekend or 2 weekends ago, the subject came up, and I think it boils down to wants to be able to beat Zerger and Schuster. but they're in the AFC. He never gets to play them, and so came up that why don't we make this a relegation league where the bottom two NFC teams move down to the AFC, the top two in the AFC move up to the NFC. We can address that at the end of the season, the following season. But my stance is that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We'd be missing out, losing some rivalries. But by the same token, I do see that it really would add a lot more competition to it. The way that we do draft picks is the higher you finish, the better draft choice you get. We're all about rewarding success. We have rivalry week in that last week of the season so that guys keep trying all season.
Unless you're Morgan.
Way to do that. Yeah, unless you're Morgan. But this would be one more way to do that. Final week, and there's a possibility you're going to finish in the bottom two. You're sure as hell going to fight tooth and nail to make sure you don't get relegated down to a lower conference. So I've just never been comfortable saying out loud that this is better or more prestigious than another. As far as I'm concerned, they're all equal. Some are just older than others and more established, but they're the same settings, everything else. And I do the same amount of work on all three.
Yeah. The idea on paper I like. But if you were to think like last season, if we had that, who would have been in the bottom? Who would have got relegated? It would have been would have been you and Duffy.
No, it would have been Duffy and
Morgan. Okay. So let's say for example it's you, and you're out of this league now. Are you still the commissioner of the NFC, but you're playing in the AFC, or you see kind of the?
Yeah, and that wouldn't really be a problem because I'm really the commissioner of all three. Co-commissioner and the other two.
And then I think you also brought up the point that weekend of, or maybe someone else did, of stat keeping and stuff like that. I don't know if that would, or even how difficult it would be to move a team from the NFC to the AFC, or possibly even down to the PFC and then back again. As a manager, do I have to create a whole new thing, or?
And I'm sure we could figure that out. Honestly, as far as from my end, I asked to continually move teams on the website.
Yeah.
And I could obviously organize the teams differently than I do now. I don't know. I've done a lot on the website. I don't really want to change much because at this point we're like 7 years in the work I've done on it.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be some logistical challenges. One challenge would be lack of the head-to-head records, whereas now I've got a 14 by 14 each of head-to-head. It would all of a sudden be, two table, and it's just we can address it after the season, and if the membership really wants to, we'll find a way. But I guess it's going to be super simple.
Yeah.
It seems that way, but a lot of this stuff really does take a lot of time and effort. So,
I do like the idea. I think Peacock had it might have been Peacock, about having not necessarily like a waiting list, but like if someone were to leave the NFC, who could be promoted from like the AFC up into the NFC and vice versa. Because, like, for example, Peacock was an original member and then took a hiatus and then came back. So like if for some reason somebody left, we could just pull one guy up and, Peacock's on the promotion list. And
yeah, and I think the second one would be Schuster, because before there was an AFC, he was the first one on the waiting list.
yeah.
I get that. Yeah, Peacock was an original member. Of course, Schuster was on that mission with us, and he's been around us for all these years. Address that so that it's not swept under the rug. I know that it's something that some guys want, and we had RateMyLeague.com preview the oil, and in that broadcast, they also mentioned how this would be really great as a relegation league. So the idea, the seed is planted. I'm open to it. I'll be on the record as saying I like the things the way they are, but we can certainly address it. So without further ado, let's move right into the AFC. Week 1 prizes. Let me see here. So week team, the two top teams are the two championship teams from last year. Rebel Alliance, which is Row, and Venable Warpony. They met in last year's Thunder Bowl, and Venable won. So these two, it looks like they might be on a collision course once again. They each scored over 180. Row was close to breaking that 200-point barrier. I think that aside from Hillier, I really think that this conference is much more balanced than it had been in its previous 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Peacock starts out 1-0. His draft was so much better than last year's when he didn't get any sleep and decisions. Hillier, I don't know what his deal is, but I had to convince him to play again this year. He was gonna out ahead and called him and got him to play, and then him a couple times saying, hey, your kicker's not on the team anymore. And he's like, yeah, I'll fix that. You don't really care, right? So I don't know what Hillier's deal is. I mean, he made the championship his first season. He always seemed like a competitive guy, but
yeah,
hopefully he snaps out of it. I mean, there's other guys that would like to be in the league, but Hillier's a good guy, and I certainly don't want to kick him out. This season, or this week rather, you got a grudge match right off the bat between Reed and Schuster. Reed and Schuster both were at the draft party. Always going to have a blast with those two around. Can you pull up that matchup?
Yeah, give me 1 second here. Here we go. All right. Yeah, so let's see, week 1. All right. Yeah, with this one, let's see here. So going into this, I thought it was going to be a lot more close than what it turned out to be. And that went for a lot of games, not in every league. Because one thing that I was really looking at was I saw, okay, Brandon Marshall's over here, Adrian Peterson's over here. You know, I've got Derrick Henry, who's coming into his first big game. So I looked at Sawtooth and just thought, man, that is going to be, I mean, that's pretty good stuff right there. Anytime you've got Adrian Peterson, Brandon Marshall, and then the rookie Derrick Henry to see what he can do. And I feel bad for Adrian Peterson coming out for his first game and having the struggles that he did. But then again, when you also have Ben Roethlisberger, who had an awesome game, and then, of course, Mike Evans blowing up, Larry Fitzgerald, Matt Forte. I mean, it was kind of hard to overcome stuff like that.
Yeah, and this week he's facing Schuster, who is 1-0. For the third year in a row, he starts off on the right foot. He's third in the league as of right now. And Andrew Luck really blew up for him last week. A lot is going to hinge on whether he can do it again. I think Schuster's team is it's just dangerous enough, but I wouldn't say that it's an every week contender. The Sawtooths, I think that their biggest weakness is quarterback and their flex positions, but Derrick Henry, if he catches one ball last week, he has a monster game. Derrick Henry looks like he's going to be
busy protesting, being oppressed.
Oh, I like Reed's team overall a little bit better, especially in this PPR format. And so I'm going to pick him to win this week, and he'll even it up at 1-1.
Yeah, I like his chances in this week's matchup as well. And something just happened. I don't know.
Lynn, the Brewmasters, he started out 0-1, and he's facing Rowe, who we talked about is currently number 1 in the league. He had the first overall pick and went with Antonio Brown. His receivers are Antonio Brown, Jordan Matthews, and Brandon Cooks, to go along with C.J. Anderson, who had a monster week 1, and Gio Bernard. Rowe's built a good team once again. For the second year in a row, it's a team that is built around a great core and mediocre to above average quarterback. Whereas Lynn really went running back heavy in the draft. I think he's got the best running back depth in the league, but it is a PPR league, and you can only start so many running backs. So that Rowe has just built a much better team here. Is there something I'm missing about Lynn's team? What do you think?
No, I think you're pretty spot on. Rowe has built a team that is for longevity. And whenever I look at the Brewmasters, I see Usain Bolt and just a sprint, because he's got Matt Stafford as his quarterback. His backup is Carson Wentz. You're right. He's definitely got the depth back. And who knows, later on in the season, whenever it gets a little closer, he might use some of those to make some trades to keep himself in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, I just think that he was using the Draft Dominator app, and they were telling him about, the value-based drafting and the best value on the board. But it's a passing league. The NFL is a passing league. The Oil is a passing PPR league, and I think that he's a few years too late with this super running back heavy strategy.
Yeah.
But that being said, we do know that Lynn always stays on top of the waiver wire, and he's not afraid to trade away players and build out his roster. So I won't count him out for the season. But in this early part of the season, I think he's got some growing pains until he makes a couple moves to set himself up for the stretch run. Unfortunately for him, I think that means he starts out 0-2.
Yeah, probably so.
Next, we've got the two teams that the previous 2 seasons, I think, finished last and second to last. Hawks and the Mutinous Apes, which is Musselman. Hawk had a better draft this year than they did last year. Made some mistakes, one of them being drafting 2 kickers, but he didn't draft 2 quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds. So that's good. But he's got some real talent here. Stephon Diggs, Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey. Theo Riddick was a monster last week. Eric Decker, Travis Kelce. Lacking in depth. Get Le'Veon Bell back after week 3, so that really will be a big boost. And Victor Cruz and Nelson Aguilar seem like they're going to be pretty good. But Cameron Brate, Rashad Perriman, and that backup kicker, I'm not sure add much. He's playing Musselman. Also had a better draft than he has had, but Todd Gurley was his number 1 pick, and he did not have a good week last week. This week he's facing the Seahawks. I don't see him carrying the load for the Apes here, and I think that Musselman's going to start out 0-2, which they start out 0-2. I really think that Musselman's getting better, and he's really getting it, but unfortunately, it's not going to pay off in these first 2 weeks.
Yeah, looking at Musselman, and Musselman drafted live from Hawaii, right? Was he online with us?
Yeah, he had to leave midway through because he said he went to the kitchen to get a refill and realized the whole kitchen was flooded because of some plumbing issue.
Oh, wow.
He did not get to draft the whole time with us, but yeah, here's a guy that got up early and made sure that he was able to draft live.
Yeah, but yeah, looking at his players and who they're matched up with this week, I don't particularly like Gurley at Seattle. I'm really not a fan of Eli Manning at all. I think that's more of just a personal thing. I've never been a fan of Eli Manning.
Eli won a championship last year.
He did. Yeah.
Sim Jack, he was his quarterback.
Yeah, he did. But I also think that the Cox with Stephon Diggs, Alshon Jeffries, Theo Riddick this week, I think will have another good game. Martellus Bennett with the New England Patriots, I think could come on before he's gets less hits. But I see the Cox starting off 2-0, and jeez, whoever thought that?
Oh, Lord help us if they do. Peacock will never shut up.
I know.
Well, and just for the record, the Cox are a 7-point underdog, according to Yahoo. But I think you and I are going on record as saying they pulled this one out.
Yeah, I think they do. I didn't get to watch any of the Oakland Raiders, future Las Vegas Raiders play, but that game's at Oakland. It's going to be perfect weather. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones might have a good game.
Yeah. Well, next is who I think they auto-drafted versus Warm Bodies. That's Nye. He did draft his own team. ranked 9th and 13th right now. I'm going to pick the Doughboys to get this win and get back to 1-1. Looking at their roster, it's kind of hard to believe that they're 0-1 right now. But, anything can happen, and they just had some bad luck in the first week. Looking across the field here, the Warm Bodies looks like they've had some injury concerns. They're having to start Tyler Croft at tight end. You never want to do that. They're still waiting on Tyler Eifert to come back. Dion Lewis, Jimmy Graham is on their bench. I just don't see any way that the Warm Bodies pull this off.
Yeah, I don't either, unless Aaron Rodgers just has a monster game going into that new stadium in Minnesota, along with Randall Cobb. Looking at the injury, or I guess the lack of depth right now for Warm Bodies, it does look like the Doughboys are going to pull this out. Have the Doughboys made any moves since the draft?
Can you check that out?
Let's see here. League. Yes. They dropped Chris Hogan and picked up DeAndre Washington. That was on the 7th.
Okay. I think we're in agreement with the Doughboys. Moving on to Hillier and the Hooligans. We've talked about Hillier. His team is not that impressive. It's anchored by Cam Newton. He's also got Des Bryant, who is dealing with a rookie quarterback, Jamal Charles, who still may be injured, and Carlos Hyde. I guess those are his headliners. Not a terribly balanced team. Neely's Hooligans, pretty good draft. He was there with us and telling us stories that we didn't really get to hear when we were at Fort Lewis with him, and
complaining about the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, man, a typical officer complaining about the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I guess he didn't think the lodging was appropriate, but the rest of us were just fine with our 6,000 square foot cabin on a private lake. And Neely he's just assembled a better roster. It's not a world beater, but I think once he replaces Ertz in that starting lineup, he'll be set up position to beat Hillier. But it wouldn't surprise me if Hillier pulls it out. He's got some star power. They could go off. But, for Hillier's sake, I hope he wins. I hope he kind of gets on a roll and that he snaps out of it and gets back into the league. But this is certainly not the game of the week.
Yeah, I'm looking here, and long term, he's going to have some problems. He still has RG3 on his bench. He's got Joe Flacco, which I think you can find a better quarterback than that for a backup. And then you still have he's got Garoppolo as his backup too. So he's carrying 3 quarterbacks and a kicker that he needs to put in. Carlos Hyde, hopefully he doesn't get hurt, because if he does, then he'll definitely be in a world of hurt.
Yeah. Well, this next matchup could be the game of the week. This is one I'm really looking forward to. 2 of the biggest shit talkers in the whole league. You got Zerger and Brosh. Zerger could not come to the draft because of work.
No, his wife had his balls. Her balls.
Yeah. Brosh came, and I mean, I hadn't spent that much time with Brosh since we were roommates overseas. Man, it was fun. He wasn't able to come to the reunion last year. He did go to the draft with us last year, but he showed up. He didn't drink with us all night, so I didn't feel like we really got to hang out at all last year. But we certainly made up for it this year, sharing old stories about being roommates in Iraq, and he hasn't changed. I mean, none of us really have changed that much. It was a blast, but he was pissed off because last year he really had the best team and faltered down the stretch due to injury, and he is one motivated man trying to win this thing. So here you've got two really evenly matched teams. What do you see here?
So one thing that I see here that that kind of makes me lean, and I freaking hate to say it because he is a shit talker, is I lean a little bit more towards the Redlegs just because I feel like Mike Evans and Jameis Winston have a pretty good relationship built together. And then, of course, Larry Fitzgerald is like Tim Duncan of the NFL. You think he's old, but he just shows you every week that he still got it. I do like Gronkowski if he's 100% for the Vultures, along with Jordy Nelson and Landry. And then you also have the Denver defense, which I'm wondering if they're going to be able to play at that level of intensity that they did against Carolina, even though who was it that just got fined, didn't they, for that hit on Cam?
Brandon Marshall.
Yeah. So let's hope that they don't lose any intensity. I like the bench for the Vultures a little bit better than I do Zerger's team, the Redlegs. But with this one, as much as I hate to, I'm going to pick the Redlegs.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Yahoo is picking the Vultures, but that's assuming that Gronkowski plays and that he plays at a high level. I just, knowing the Patriots, it would not surprise me if they rest him one more week.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing Miami at home. I don't think they're world beaters. So it wouldn't surprise me if Gronkowski does not play, in which case Brosh has got some decisions to make regarding Pierre Garçon or Philip Dorsett, possibly Anquan Bolden. But the biggest concern is that they do play him, but it's more as a decoy.
Yeah.
And so Sunday morning, Brosh wakes up. He sees that Gronk is active. He puts him in his lineup, and he gets him one catch for 6 yards.
Yeah.
So I mean, that might be worse than just not playing him.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm not making any pronouncements about Gronkowski's availability, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's not available. And so I'm not factoring him into this this prediction, but as well. And
what's a pronouncement?
Pronouncement?
Yeah, is that a fancy lawyer word?
I'm not sure. I learned it somewhere. I thought I forgot all my fancy lawyer words at that cabin. I think I came back with a vocabulary of fuck, fucking, motherfuck, shit.
Let's see here.
All right, the last one in the AFC is a judge match. It's Fitzgerald and Venable, two of the leadership on that Sec 4 mission, and two guys that were right in the thick of it last year. Venable was a number 1 seed. Fitzgerald was a number 2 seed. I think Fitzgerald finished third. Venable won it. And this week they're separated by less than half a point, according to Yahoo. Venable did not pick his team. Fitzgerald did pick his. So in that regard, I'm rooting for Fitzgerald. I always root for guys that pick their own team. But they really do both have great teams. And I'm interested to hear what you have to say about them.
Yeah, I really like Fitzgerald's team. I mean, with Drew Brees, Odell, Willie Snead. You also have Davante Adams. And then you look down, and he's got an okay bench. I mean, he's got Jonathan Stewart down there. He looks to be real heavy in the – see, he's got 3 running backs on his bench. I mean, he might maybe want to pick up a couple of receivers with that. But I really like his core starting group. I don't think Jay Cutler is, to me, he's not a starting quarterback for fantasy. Good bench guy, but not starter quality to me. Kelvin Benjamin is he's on his way back to being comeback of the year. So
looking at these two rosters or these lineups as of right now, I like Venables better, but bench, like you said, Fitzgerald's got a really good bench, and I don't think he set his lineup for this week yet. I think he's going to bench Christian Michael.
Yeah.
And he'll probably bench Davante Adams or Cole Beasley. And then in the place of those guys, he's got Jonathan Stewart and Corey Coleman, who had a big game in his first game as a rookie. Meaning he had a really long pass. But he's got Josh McCown at quarterback now. I think that he'll do well with him. I think Stewart will do better than Michael. And if he adds those guys to his starting lineup, I think that it really does change the outcome of this matchup.
Yeah. I like Steel Rain in this one.
I really like Venables' lineup looking at it right now, but Angelo Williams in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got some good depth at running back. He's got Rashad Jennings, James White, and Devontae Freeman. So, it won't be a complete loss, but none of those guys are going to give him the production that DeAngelo Williams is giving him right now. So this might be a candidate for a team that starts out really hot, maybe 3-1, 4-0, and then kind of starts to even out after the first 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, possibly someone the Brewmasters can trade a running back to.
Yeah. I mean, he's got some depth he can trade back, and it'll be interesting to watch. Let's move over to the NFC, the original conference, our conference. It was not a good week for the Arrogant Americans.
Or the Northern Nobodies.
Yeah, man, we got beat down by Finch. We were on the losing end of the biggest blowout, but still like my team overall. Yeah, so we'll just jump into it because that was a bad week last week. Let's start with the Ammo Dogs versus Dead Again. Ammo Dogs is Michael Rogers. He picked his own team. He's been really on the cusp of competing for a championship the last 2 seasons. I think last year he had the best roster in the league for quite a while until injuries caught up to him. But he did make the playoffs and got upset. And then he's built a good roster once again. In the draft, he went with David Johnson with the 5th pick. And Andrew Luck a few picks later. He's got Brandon Cooks, Sammy Watkins, and the rookie Tajay Sharp. I really like what he did at running back because he's got David Johnson, who can be just a monster. But he's also got Jonathan Stewart, which is, what his floor is. He's steady Eddie. It's like he knows when he's going to get out of that spot. And then this other spot is his boom or bust.
Yeah.
It's a good team. Dead again has not set his lineup for this week because he is in the midst of trading a couple players to Pile. He's trading Carlos Hyde and Carson Palmer and Carlos Hyde's handcuff. And in return, he's getting, but I don't think it's a. I think I hit evaluate trade as commissioner. It helps both teams, so I will end up approving that trade. There's just no possibility of collusion here. But Schmidt did pick his team. He has a plan. He traded with Duffy already, a trade that some of us really questioned, but I reached out to him, and he's got a plan, and he knew what he was doing, so more power to him. But they're both 0-1. Ammo Dog just ran into a buzzsaw last week. They played Duffy. Duffy dropped a 200 bomb on them, and so even though they scored, I think 180, 165, something like that, they're 0-1. I think they'll bounce back in a big way here and even it up at 1-1.
Yeah, I think so too. One thing I'm looking at though, what is the Ammo Dogs doing with these 3 empty roster spots on the bench?
What happened there is that Schmidt is trading away 2 of these players, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he takes them out of his starting lineup and he puts them on his bench. They have to extend the bench to include all them, but there's only so many bench spots that Rogers can.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
That's what's going on there. Okay. Jessen Domination Station is facing Dark Narcs, which is Henderson this week. Was Henderson the biggest surprise of draft day?
His pick was.
Yeah. So Henderson had the number 1 overall pick, and he went with Cam Newton. He told me that's what his plan was, and honestly, it took everything I had not to ask him why. We all know that quarterback is devalued in these large PPR leagues, but that's who he wanted. It's a 3rd straight year he's had him. And the last 2 years, he's finished 4th and 2nd, so he's done well for him, but he could have gotten him a round or 2 later. So I didn't like the value there, but I wasn't going to talk him out of it because I was picking at 6th.
Yeah, him picking that, it
moved all those guys down, and
it moved everybody up a draft spot.
Yeah, it was like I was picking 5th. So I certainly wasn't going to talk him out of it. He went with it, and I think he built a solid enough team after that, but it's not a candidate for 1-12, but I don't think it'll be the same team that he finished as last year unless there's a major waiver wire addition.
Yeah, and then of course he's gonna get Josh Gordon back in a few weeks, and hopefully that can he can replace Devontae Adams maybe at that flex position with him.
Yeah. On the other side, you got Jessen, who, when you look at his team, it's really hard to look at it and say exactly what his strategy was. And I don't mean that in a shitty way. I just mean it's not easily classified. It's you don't look at it and say, oh, he went strong running backs, but you also don't say, oh, he's really strong at receiver. He's just kind of a balanced all around team. A lot of it is predicated on Gronkowski. But looking at his bench, I believe. No, he didn't get Peterson. He picked Allen Robinson in the first round, which I liked, and then he came back in the second for Gronkowski. His running backs are Arian Foster, LeGarrette Blount, and Jeremy Langford. So he's really boomer bust at running back because I think any of those guys could get injured tomorrow.
Yeah, and he's got 3 on the bench with Bush, Irvin, and Thompson.
Yeah, not that those guys are really candidates to start for him. I mean, Reggie Bush had -4 yards last week.
He's got the Kardashian curse.
Yeah. This one really is a toss-up to me. I don't like Henderson's team. I don't love Jessens. I don't love any one part of Jessens, especially if Gronkowski's not in. But I can certainly see Jessen pulling this off, and I guess that's who I'm going to pick.
I'm in agreement with you. This one's kind of a, in I don't know, in Vegas it might be a pick 'em, but I'm going to go with Jessen's team for the simple homer reason that Sterling Shepard showed that he is ready to be a number 2 receiver for the New York Giants.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly liked watching him the past 3 or 4 years, and we knew he was going to be ready, and he has not disappointed, at least not in the 1 week he's played.
Yeah, that touchdown catch he had was big league.
So next is a slight surprise as a number 1 team in the league this week, the Hangovers. Rival Duffy. He was not at the draft cabin. As you know, he lives in Wisconsin now. And he travels a lot for work, and he has 2 kids under 2 years old, so he wasn't going to make his wife stay with the kids another weekend while he was gone. Here he can get away for a little while. He did draft his team from Wisconsin on Clicky Draft. There were a couple of snafus because of the poor Wi-Fi at the cabin, but he certainly made lemons out of lemonade, and he dropped a 200 bomb last week. This is another team that didn't follow a traditional wide receiver heavy or running back heavy. It's really balanced. In the first 3 picks were receiver, running back, and quarterback. Worked last week. He's playing Yancey. Yancey was not able to pick his own team. Auto Draft was not very kind to him. And this is a first versus worst matchup right here. Number 1 versus number 14. I see no reason to go against Duffy here. And I think he goes 2-0 and maybe really starts getting that 2-11 taste out of his mouth.
Yeah, I think Duffy wins here. Yancey's auto draft did not work out for him. I'm pretty sure I've seen him active on the waiver wires, though, making changes to that, which is good. So it's definitely not like he's sticking with that team. He's definitely looking for improvements, but this one right here, I think it's just a little too soon, and I think Duffy's going to win this one.
Yeah, if Yancey makes the playoffs, I think it'll be as an 8-5 at best, maybe 7-6 and squeak in kind of team. It can happen. but I just don't see him running away with it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Finch out big time last week. He's now facing your rival, Morgan. Morgan had a big week last week. This is number 2 versus number 5. What do you see here? What do you like in these teams?
I like Amari Cooper for Finch.
Wait, by the way, I text Finch and said that if he wins this year, there should be an asterisk next to it because he had the second overall pick, and there's no way the second overall pick should be able to get Antonio Brown.
What's better about it is the way that he signaled Antonio Brown from outside.
Yeah, it was like some sort of.
Let's see, it was an A, like a triangle with your hand, and then if you made a circle and inserted your finger.
Yes, Antonio Brown.
And people inside knew what he was saying.
Yeah, we all speak Finch.
But yeah, I like his team. He's he's got some. I think he's got a good core of receivers with Brown, Cooper, and Josh Brown.
Josh Brown?
Yeah, or John Brown. John Brown. I'm sorry. John Brown. DeMarco Murray showed signs of his old self last week. Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah. I had those two guys last year and rode them all the way to the playoffs until Abdullah made that fumble, lost 2 points, which caused me to lose by like 1.8 points. But those two are a good running back combo to have. Whenever you go over and you look at the whackers, you got Julian Edelman, Dez Bryant, who hopefully he'll get on a good page with his rookie quarterback, Brandon Marshall, Ryan Matthews, Danny Woodhead. I like those. Antonio Gates, that guy's like 100. So I really like those teams. Their benches aren't too bad either whenever you look at them. He's got –
Yeah. I thought Morgan did a really good job. I mean, I thought that he did as well. Expected it from Finch. I didn't expect it from Morgan. So I really do like both of these teams. The only reason I'm picking, I want to pick Finch because I don't know if Dez Bryant is going to get on the same page with Dak Prescott this week. But John Brown has been dealing with headaches. He had a bad week last week, so he may not do so well himself. Really is a true toss-up. These teams complement each other really well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Finch, but Curtis saying that anything can happen here.
Yeah, I like Finch as well. One thing that I noticed when looking at Finch's bench is he also has Derrick Henry. So I'm curious to see what his strategy might be if that running back combination in Tennessee turns into a shared duties,
He's starting Riddick and Amir Abdullah, who are both in Detroit. And between them, they gave him like 50 points last week. So maybe he won't be afraid of doing 2 from Tennessee.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Lucky enough, our boy Pyle, week last week, expected, but he did pull out the win against you, barely. He's now 1-0. Bob, who's 1-0. are two very different 1-0 teams. Pyle is certainly a threat to win it all. Cobb, kind of typical Cobb. He's got a hell of a quarterback, and then maybe a couple of other players that are worth a damn. And he's just going to ride that quarterback. I mean, he's kind of like the real life, not the real life. He's like the fantasy New Orleans Saints. He's putting everything on the back of Drew Brees and just hoping that this like broken nuts and bolts in this bucket can be good enough for the rest of the team. As a Saints fan, I can tell you that that's not been working out so well, and I don't see it as a viable long-term solution in fantasy either. As good as Drew Brees is, he's not 2013 Peyton Manning. Road to a championship that year. Pyle really did build an impressive team. Quarterback, I know you don't like him, but he's been doing well. And this trade that happened between Pyle and Schmidt will involve Carson Palmer going to Pyle. So that'll just give him another weapon. And Pyle at this point is my favorite to win the league this year. I'm certainly not going to go against him this week against a very unbalanced and imperfect Dogs of War team.
Yeah, seeing how well Pyle drafted last week I was really, really hoping to beat him to get him off to an 0-1 start. Mainly seeing how well he drafted and knowing that, shit, he drafted right behind me, so I missed out on some of these players that he got. And then just knowing how much that would have, just an 0-1 right off the bat would have done to him. But looking at his team, I mean, unless he gets some key injuries, he definitely does have a team that you're going to see in the playoffs. And as much as I hate to pick him, he'll win this one.
Yeah, maybe it was first game since 2008. Well, let's just go on to your matchup. Defending champion Sooner Jack. Rouge is also 0-1. He's got a good team. He was one of the favorites of the Rate My League podcast season. I'm going to tell you, I really do like your team. You just narrowly lost Pyle last week. I really like T.Y. Hilton and Tyler Lockett as your receivers. Duke Johnson and Matt Forte, along with T.J. Yeldon, are just really good as PPR running backs. I don't love Jared Cook at tight end or Tavon Austin in the flex, especially against Seattle. Austin had a big week 1. He's got a really tough schedule coming up. Playing at Arizona this week, so I'm going to see if he can. Kirk Cousins, who was certainly disappointing last week, coming off a really strong close to the season last year. He's got a solid but not spectacular receiving core. Eric Decker and Jeremy Maclin are types. Deshaun Jackson is boom or bust. I like his running back and LaShawn McCoy. Julius Thomas is healthy this year. Stephon Diggs is really good in the flex. Sproles, I'm not sure he's the Darren Sproles of old. But teams, I really have no faith in Kirk Cousins this week. I'm leery about Winston against the Cardinals, but I am going to pick your team here. Get to 1-1, knock the champ down to 0-2, and live to fight another day.
Yeah, one of the matchups that I like from my team is Tyler Lockett and the Seahawks going against the LA Rams. You made the comment about Kirk Cousins, but I mean, that's still a Dallas Cowboy defense where, I think most people only know one person on that defense, and that's the linebacker Lee. So Cousins might have a good game. It's at home. But I do like my receivers, even though the Rate My League guys did not, outside of Odell Beckham Jr. They weren't fans of the receiving core there.
Yeah, receivers. I mean, T.Y. Hilton's got a tough matchup, but Odell Beckham against the Saints, much up than that.
No.
The Saints' top cornerback broke the leg last week. Their top 3 cornerbacks this week, between the 3 of them, they had 0 snaps last year. I mean, back to pile, Eli Manning, his quarterback, going to light up the Saints, and I think it's going to equal a lucky enough win and a normally nobody's win.
Let's hope so, because the nobody's got to get back in the win column.
Yeah. Speaking of getting back in the win column, against ranked Hippies, the Dirty Hippies were the 2014 champions. Last year, but they couldn't quite make it to the playoffs. I think he's built an impressive roster. Adrian Peterson and D'Angelo Williams / Le'Veon Bell at running back. It's tough to do better than that, especially with Jordan Reed at tight end and Roethlisberger at quarterback. That type of talent at your running back positions, it's going to mean that your receivers are not as good, and he's got Doug Baldwin, Michael Floyd, and Peter Garcon. Guys, team, but I think that the way it's built, waiver wire that does really well, pretty far on my side. I already had touch, so I'm digging deep and starting Dennis Pitta. Need a 1-1. I love my got DeAndre Hopkins, Alshon Jeffrey, Demaryius Thomas. I just hope they don't kill me. Gio Bernard and Rashad Jennings. Outsider, looking in. What do you like and dislike about these two teams?
With your team, I really like your bench. I mean, you've got Eifert there, who's out but will come back. Kenny Stills, Terrell Pryor. Your receivers I really like. I agree with you that the Hippies do have a strong quarterback and running backs, but man, those receivers, I mean, you mentioned Baldwin, Floyd, and Garcon. You also have Eddie Royal in the flex. And I mean, whenever you go down and you look at his bench, I mean, he really doesn't have – he's only got 2 wide receivers on there, Coates and Janis. I mean, 4 running backs on his bench, along with the 3 that's in his lineup, or the 2 that's in his lineup now. Yeah, I think he's going to have to definitely make some moves with them, because he's got running backs to trade, and maybe pick up a better receiver or tight end. But right now, I like your team on this one. And the new logo.
That's been for a while. simple, that can be like a tertiary logo that doesn't involve open the bird. A little bit more. On to the PFC and late tonight, so let's not go through each and every matchup, but I do want to say that the Vandals, they auto-drafted. He was working, and that's a guy that I know nobody really knows him. His name is Brian Oglesby, a Marine Corps vet that I met, and he enjoys being in the league. Maybe this year he can go further in the playoffs, but he's the number one team. The number two team this week is Tadlock, who was actually at the cabin drafting with us. Guy knows his stuff, knew who he wanted, did a great job. In third place, the Orange Bloods. He was drafting his team and obviously did a good enough job to be in third place right now. This is Pennington, the FDC Chiefs, and Pennington and McKay play each other this week, so we'll look at that one. Number 3 versus number 4. Are a 9-point favorite coming in. Both teams are pretty weak at tight end. And Jesse James and Jared Cook, another out. But the Chiefs have Brandon Marshall, Doug Baldwin, and Tyler Lockett. At receiver, D'Angelo Williams. The Orange Bloods have DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, and Randall Cobb. Another really strong lineup. But I do like the Chiefs running backs better. E.J. Yeldon. The flex spots I like better on the Orange Bloods. But I'm gonna go ahead and call this one for Pennington and the Chiefs.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Chiefs, I think, have the edge when it comes to the running back spot. I think, both of them with the tight end situation. My team's in the same boat, being very weak at tight end right now. So those do kind of wash out. I think one thing that the FDC Chiefs might want to look at is maybe seeing if there's a little bit better of a defensive matchup that they could pick up on the waiver wire. Other than that, I don't see any problems with the Chiefs winning this game.
Yeah, and just looking long-term for a moment, I really like the Chiefs' chances because we've outlined how strong the receivers are. And then at running back right now, they've got Matt Forte and D'Angelo Williams. But they've also got Le'Veon Bell on the bench.
Yeah.
They won't miss a beat when D'Angelo Williams goes back to the bench. And they've got Corey Coleman on the bench. I think it won't be long before he's a permanent fixture in one of these flex spots. He can just pick up a better tight end along the way. This is a real threat for the championship.
Yeah, I think so. And the tight end along the way, with the way that some people use tight ends, almost like they do a kicker in a defense, they're able to just unless you have Gronkowski, you really can't expect too much performance from one. So, he might be able to catch somebody that dropped a good tight end on a bye week and able to swoop one up.
The other matchup we'll break down the two other PFC managers that were actually in attendance at the draft party. The defending champion Boomtown Brawler, managed by Zach Brake, and the Great Plains Drifters, managed by Aaron Gray. Gray, who said throughout the draft, yeah, I guess I'll take that guy. He is a perfect He's a perfect example of someone who is not necessarily a huge fantasy football fan. Really enjoys being in the oil, and all for bringing the guys together and providing that camaraderie he's missed since he left the military. That guy, man, all weekend he was out shooting stuff, and
He was either shooting or sleeping.
yeah, that's like his only two speeds. But I know he had a blast, and I'm glad he was there. For not knowing a whole lot, he had a pretty decent draft. In hindsight, Todd Gurley, not a great pick. Although I say that, but it's really not hindsight. I was scared to death of Gurley. I had the opportunity to draft him at 6th overall, and I passed on him. I hate picking a running back in a that has no semblance of a passing game, no threat of one. They're just stacking the box, and Gurley's getting killed. There's only been 2 running backs I've seen that can effectively under those circumstances, and that's Adrian Peterson and vintage Steven Jackson. Every other running back that you count on in fantasy, they have a passing attack that takes some of the pressure off. Gurley doesn't have that. He certainly won't have that this week against Seattle. I don't like him, although I do like the Drifters roster, because aside from that really strong back Gurley, he's got Drew Brees and Jarvis Landry and Julian Edelman, really strong guys to have on your team, especially in a PPR setting. Bennett did not do much. I'm not sure how good he'll be. Who his bench tight end is.
And Croft.
Ladarius Green, who's on the PUP list, and Tyler Croft, who Martellus Bennett better do well.
Yeah.
Everybody else. Looking across the field, I don't love Dak Prescott for the Brawlers. Wait until the 16th round and pick a quarterback. And, it might end up, he's got a lot of depth at other positions. There's always a quarterback that breaks out and he can maybe pick up, like his quarterback position to start the season. But his receivers, Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, along with Kenny Stills down there in the flex, are good. Backs are solid, not spectacular. Jonathan Stewart, Carlos Hyde. They'll probably replace that Christian Michael pick with Thomas Rawls. Bench. And he is just waiting out Josh Gordon. He's got Josh Gordon down there, and once he gets plugged in, that'll be a hell of a roster.
Yeah, and I'm
Yahoo.
surprised. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Yahoo has the Drifters as a 10-point favorite. I'm going to pick the Brawlers here.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the Brawlers, their roster and how they performed last week. I'm surprised that he kept Dak Prescott in, seeing the performance that Osweiler did with Houston. Prescott put up 12.5 points versus Osweiler's almost 23. So I'm surprised that he's sticking with him for this week.
Well, and it might be he just hasn't taken him out yet because he's still got Christian Michael in there, and the Seahawks have said that Rawls will be the starter this week. I'm out. I do like that he has the handcuff for Rawls and Christian Michael, and he's got the handcuff in Sean Drawn. Still got Matt Jones, so
yeah,
he's got good running back depth. especially once Josh Gordon gets back, he'll have some great receivers. He's just one good quarterback pickup away from being a real monster in this league.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, once he gets Josh Gordon back, maybe he can sub him in for Diggs and move Diggs into that flex spot, and then maybe Kenny Stills out of that one into the other one. But with those late quarterback picks, he does have the depth there, and I don't know off the top of my head which quarterback, Osweiler or Prescott, has the earlier bye week. But I mean, who's to say that he, trades one of those away for another addition at receiver or running back? So.
Yeah, well, that will do it for episode of the 2016 season of the Oil Hour. We got started pretty late. Didn't get as in-depth as we'd like to on C, but we can always do it next week. And just if anybody wants to bitch and moan, if you want to talk about your league or your conference or your matchup, or you call into the show, come on and we'll talk about it as much as you want. But, Leo and I, we kind of let this thing go where it takes us, and I enjoy my 3 beers and fantasy football talk every Wednesday. I'm glad it's back.
Me too. Even though I don't have the office that I did last year, because for you guys that aren't aware, me and my wife were expecting our second child in November. So my son graduated from his room or old room into what was my office, which was a bigger room. And then our soon-to-be daughter will take over his room. So my office is no more. I've got my computer and my printer here in a little nook next to the dining room. So
some really cute wallpaper.
Yeah, you like that? I don't know how to redo wallpaper, but yeah, it's nostalgic.
Well, if you're going to have another kid, why don't you just buy a bigger house?
We were looking at that, but we couldn't. So we've set a deadline for ourselves because, obviously you don't want to move with a newborn. You don't want to move with an 8-month pregnant wife. So we actually went and looked. We were in the market and we were looking, and we just did not. It's so hard in Norman to find a 4-bedroom house that's not close to campus, because all of those want to be rented out to the college kids, and not way out in the country. So it was, right now we just couldn't find anything. So we kind of just decided to, stick it out here until the baby's born and she gets a little older. Maybe by the time that Lisa comes off of maternity leave, then we can maybe start looking again and seeing if we can find something a little bit bigger. But right now we've just kind of sacrificed. I got a garage full of all the stuff that was in my office, but we'll see how it works out later.
Well, I was just making a shitty joke, but something for you. You can always move to Oklahoma City.
I don't know about that.
But yeah. All right, well, that'll do it. Have a good night.
All right,
and good luck this week.
Yep, you too. Have a good luck Sunday and Monday and Thursday night game. And let's get ready for that big Ohio State OU game.
Yeah, let's do it. Later.
Bye.